Talking Point platform, TTPTV. Oh yeah. Unale we pledge with love and loyalty to we sweet, sweet mama salute. Now we all come together as one. For tomorrow, now we gon' make salute. Talking Point platform. For news every day, now we country salute. For education, entertainment, political affairs, TTPTV. We put enough Tanga one inside Sierra Leone, like a big quantity. We breeze not a shit, TTPTV.
To ensure that it is beneficial both for the investor and for the country at large.
All right, that's all we have in our top stories this morning. It's barely 5 days to the June 24 multi-state elections. Like Amadou said, we'll also be bringing you live broadcast. Today, the ballot papers will arrive at Silunge International Airport. It shows that we are ready for the elections. Over to you, Amadou and Zula in our main studios.
Well, thank you very much, David. Indeed, we'll be bringing live coverage of activities and events happening today, live from the Lunge International Airport. And the chair of the Commonwealth Observer Mission, the immediate past former Vice President of Nigeria, Professor Yemi Osibanjo, will be addressing the media today. We'll be bringing that live. And also the PPRC will be mediating between the APC, the ECSL, and the security sector. We'll be bringing that live as well from the Bintumani Conference Center. So with AYV, you have nothing to miss. Just keep watching on Channel 33, on DSTV Channel 399, on Radio FM 101.7, online at www.ayvnews.com. You can also have the AYV mobile app and watch us wherever and whenever. And also, you can follow us on our social media platforms, AYV News on Facebook. In the show this morning, we'll continue the conversation on peace and national cohesion ahead of the June 24th multi-tier elections, with barely 5 days to the polls.
And also, we shall be speaking to the country director of the International Republican Institute, IRI, on their operation in Sierra Leone. And we will be bringing you live broadcasts from the Lunge Airport on the arrival of the ballot paper.
Our quote for today says, internal wrangles within political system needs to be resolved in a manner that the lives of Sierra Leoneans and national development is not jeopardized. I still believe that reconciliation is the best way to go for a leader, and it comes from Prince Macaulay, an economist and private development consultant. We take a quick break from our sponsor, Ukel Commercial Bank. We'll come back to start the conversation proper. Keep watching.
Every day, the world wakes up to you. Millions of people are getting ready for you for shopping, travel expenses, utility bills, trade, and commerce. If we all have wishes, then what is your financial transaction wish?
I'd like to have a choice.
I'd like convenience.
I'd like to pay for goods and services on the go.
I'd like to pay utility bills on the go. Out of credit and data, buy some mobile top-up, still on my phone. Oops, light out. I'll buy some ETSA, still on my phone.
I'd like to make payment from my account to another account through my mobile phone.
As a CEO of a company, I would like my staff to receive their salaries through bulk e-payment without the risk of transporting cash.
Rokel Commercial Bank Simcopo does it all.
Rokel Commercial Bank Simcopo. Think of it as
money when you're close to home and when you're away from home for unexpected expenses, and money for those times when cash fails.
If you can dream it, you can become it. If you can imagine it, you can achieve it.
Rokel Commercial Bank Simcopo is all you need.
Peace is essential in every nation we know. A safer place to live, safeguarding human security. Let us make Sierra Leone a safer planet for us all to live in peace. This is not the message. We come up from National Early Warning and Response Mechanism Coordinating Center, Sierra Leone.
Master Tech on the beat.
Help me stop them here. we go make salon no get piso. Make we stop the tia, we go make salon no get piso. Adi you again is for yeri, do ya na for yeri this word. And you again for see, do ya na for open you ya see. Because cola to people like you say, oh, we better pass gentry. Oh, cola to better pass gentry. Salon make we think, oh, and make we put we country salon first. Make we stop the tia, so we go bring Kuskas now we country. Oh. Hey, hey, mama salon. Make we stop for political manner in the streets. Make we stop for spread hate speeches in this country. Make we stop political intimidation, I say. Make we stop for take the law that we are. Make we stop for kill security man them now we family them. Stay away from political dishonesty, I say. Stop the lawlessness and obey the law. Stop misinformation and dissemination of bad news. Yeah.
Nothing gets transformed in your life until your mind is transformed. Have you been thinking of transforming your mind through information technology? Well, wait no more. The College of Digital Excellence, CODE, is here to bring your dream to life. CODE, in partnership with NIIT, an institution from India with its footprint in 30 countries across the world and with over 40 years of experience in IT education and training, will provide IT training and development solutions to individuals, institutions, and enterprises in Sierra Leone. CODE has professional tutors from Sierra Leone and India with a wealth of experience in education and training delivery. CODE offers various certificates to honors, professional diploma level courses starting from basics like computer fundamentals, Microsoft Office tool to full stack developer, web design and development, database management, hardware, networking, CCNA, CCNP, cybersecurity, digital marketing. CODE has ultra-modern facilities ranging from international standard classrooms and labs with top-notch equipment for lecturers, both in person and virtual, with latest interactive flat panels, future-ready hardware setup with all latest desktop computers for students, in-house developed study materials, textbooks, which helps to deliver the best contents to its students. It's also offering a specially designed summer vacation program that will introduce educational activities that encourage kids to learn in a fun way. Visit us at 36 Main Motor Road, Congo Cross, Freetown. If you are not studying at CODE NIIT, you are missing something.
Okay, welcome back. This is Wake Up Salone on AYV Television. We're on Channel 93, we're on DSTV on Channel 399. We're also on Radio FM 11.7. We're streaming live on Facebook on AYV News. And as always, you can be part of this program. Drop your comments, questions. We'll definitely find time to read them out to our guests here, especially on the issues we're discussing. In our first segment this morning, we continue with the conversation on the importance of peace and national cohesion ahead of the June 24 multi-tier elections, with barely 5 days to the election day. In the studio, we have been joined by John Coker, Executive Director of Komon-Tok International, and Dr. Aissata Maoy, Network Coordinator, West African Network for Peace Building, WANEP. In our studio too, we have Monica Yeni Galiwa, Team Lead, West Africa Youth Network. Good morning, gentlemen and ladies, and welcome to the show this morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. This is very good. This morning we have 3 women and 2 men. Yeah, that's good. I'll start with you, Doc. You know, the last time we spoke to you, WANEP issued a policy brief, you know, highlighting some of the worrying trends, the concerns, and what should be done. We are like 5 or 4 days to the elections. What's your assessment of the political climate, the atmosphere, and issues of peace and national cohesion?
Okay, and good morning, listeners and viewers. And I would like to say I'm a bit disappointed because I think all our efforts that we've been putting together as CSOs and the international community and others, you know, it seems we are just wasting our time when it comes to these particular elections, you know, even though we started earlier actually in terms of trying to, you and I know, most of the time we have been talking about peace. We talk about peace day in, day out, but it seems as if politicians are using this particular opportunity in relation to the context to actually satisfy their own personal needs. You know, this is what they care about. To say there is national interest, I think they are not thinking too much about national interest and the safety and security of the people. Because the recent trends at which things are happening, I'll talk about 3 key aspects or indicators that we have experienced in the past few weeks. It's not that we are not in existence, but we saw that first and foremost, of course, hate speech has always been there, and but it's going on a scale at which it is very dangerous for our existence in this country. And the other thing is misinformation, which is key because for some of the incidents that took place in some parts of the country during this campaign period, you saw that most of them were exaggerated. And yeah, indeed, some of those incidents are exaggerated, trying to get pity from people, all in the name of politics, just to make our country look bad, which I think it's not good for presenting our country in the international realm, you know. And another one is intolerance. You know, these political parties, especially the major ones, you saw that, you know, people are not tolerating each other, all in the name of politics. We saw incidents since the day of the campaign, the day the campaign started on 23rd May. We have been receiving information from our monitors online where you go to a particular place, you will see blockades on roads that people should not pass. They say, oh yeah, so this other party not for campaign here. We saw trends like that.
But everyone is preaching peace on their campaign, though.
Exactly. It's lip service. That's how I call it. Lip service. You know, maybe the leaders have the intention, but they should be able to control their supporters and the people they get around them. They should be able to control them in terms of trying to ensure that the peace and security of this country matters than the politics they are preaching. You know, so if you cannot control your supporters, will you be able to control this nation? That's one of the questions I'll have to ask them. You know, because then they keep giving excuses. Oh, the one day we train, the young people in that are trained, I will not behave like this. It's the ones that we have not been able to train, the ones that we have not been able to talk to, that behave in such a manner. You should have command. You should have control over the people you say are supporting you. If you are to lead this nation, we are looking for a leader who is magnanimous. We are looking for a leader who puts the interests of country first. This is what we are looking for.
How will you assess the messaging? It has been concerns. The PPRC issued a statement the last time, and we're concerned about tribal and regional statement being made by politicians. They were not specific. They didn't name the political parties, but it was in their statement.
Yeah.
How will you assess the messaging that has been going around, especially during this campaign period?
I keep saying these are unfortunate messages that some of them keep sending. And it cuts across all political parties, especially the major political parties. So you will not name one, pointing finger at one and leaving the other one. So these are unfortunate statements because some of them, you see that, and they are so determined. They are so determined to win this election that they think that the only way to get it is by force, or when you force things into people, So it doesn't work like that. I think what we should be focusing is engaging. Engagement is key. You continue to engage and be that subtle and try to engage. This is why, for me, the politics of engagement reigns. But in a situation...
You're talking about engagement, Doc, like you mentioned, even before the elections, I know ONEP has been organizing a lot of dialogue sessions and, engaging political parties, election management bodies, as well as very recently, we had the Commonwealth Secretary was here, the two major political parties and the others, they signed a peace pledge. So are we not late to engage again? We are into the elections now. When we're still talking about engagement.
What I was saying is, for me, what I believe in is politics of engagement. We continue to engage, just like you say. Perhaps the engagements we, as ONEP or other CSOs, have been doing has de-escalated some of these tensions. And I think it's very good to continue to engage. Even at this point in time, yes, we should engage. But looking at these are all full-grown men. These are all people or full-grown women that we think we have high esteem, we hold to high esteem, and we have respect for. That we should not be sitting here telling them how to put themselves together or how to behave towards an election, which is less than 5 days from now. Giving threats here and there in video clips or in gatherings, it's not making sense anymore. What I would not want is people bringing us back to a situation where it becomes very much difficult for our children's existence, and the even development becomes very difficult. We have come from war for like 22 years ago, almost. And then see, we are still struggling. We are still struggling to develop. We're still grappling with issues of little or no electricity supply in some parts of the country. There is no sufficient water for people, whereby Sierra Leone is rich when it comes to rainfall. We should be thinking of those strategies. Even in our campaign messages, we should be thinking of how it's not about talking about them, how we'll be able to strategize in order for people to be able, in fact, to be saving, to be catching water and saving it, so that even in the dries, people will not suffer to get water. We are tired of seeing our children waking up early in the morning from age 7 to 8, going to fetch water before they go to school. These are the situations we should be thinking about. It's not about how to fight or how to gain power by force, or how to stay in the seats by force. So we should be thinking about those things that in the lives and the security or social welfare of our people matters. This is what they should be preaching to their supporters. It's not about intimidation, because intimidation is everywhere. So it brings us back to the dark ages, and we don't want to go back to those dark ages. We should be able to think straight at this particular time.
Doctor, excuse me, the interest given to rallies or campaigns is way higher compared to political parties getting the people closer to their manifestos, what's in their manifestos, to get people interested. Do you think these parties have done enough to ensure that people actually know what's in these manifestos and can actually give tangible inputs into what we want?
It will never be enough. It will never be enough with such intimidations. It will never be enough because their focus mostly is not on in manifestos. Perhaps their focus is how to intimidate the opponent. That is their focus. Their focus should be you explain each and every target of that manifesto to the populace so they are able to understand, and then you'll be able to buy votes from that.
Are we as Sierra Leoneans, indulging onto all of this? Because again, a few days ago we were talking to some civil society experts, and they were saying there's this lack of interest in what's in these manifestos on our part as well.
Yes, the mindset of Sierra Leoneans is something that is baffling, and because also people do not trust the system, people do not trust institutions, people do not lack of trust on the leaders is also the problem. So until they continue to build that trust, even as CSOs, we continue to build the trust so people can now trust in us. The politicians, people can trust them. The institutions, people can trust them. Then you begin to see how people begin to change their mindset on how to begin to accept change. Change is difficult to come because the worldview of people is totally different from what I am seeing or from what other people see. The way people think, the way they behave, the way they perceive ideas is totally different. And this is the problem of Sierra Leoneans. I always keep saying that the issue of attitudinal change, that was not a mistake that came from the then president to say that the attitude of Sierra Leoneans needs to be changed. I only wish we had continued on that trajectory, on that particular path, so that we begin to build the mindset and change the mindset of how we think for development purposes.
Let me bring in John from Komon-Tok International. You have a more domestic means of, communicating peace and, targeting families as a whole, because we all come from different backgrounds and we get to pour out what we live, at home, in terms of anger, in terms of hate speech and all these, negative sides. So what have you been doing, particularly to Moyamba you went to?
Thank you very much. You see, the beauty about civil society is diversity. And sometimes when some of our colleagues feel they are on the downside, some of us will think we are on the upside. So it's that complementarity that is keeping us together. I say so because I am very hopeful with the way things are going in the last few days. Okay. Because, our approach as Komon-Tok, we choose not to change these grown-up people, but rather to work with their families, to work with their constituency members, to work with the young people so that they will influence their attitude. Because, at this time of the day, how will you change them? Because this is what they know. 5 years, you meet the people, you intimidate, you provide drugs, you provide alcohol, so we are saying we target 1,200 students from Moyamba, Pujan, Kwenadugu, Kailam. And these students have embarked for the last 4 months, not just last week, 4 months on non-violence. We have a whole month in March on non-violent communication. It's our oral history month, linking what is happening now with the conflict. Because most of the age bracket, they did not experience what we went through. And that is why some of us are very much concerned that we don't want Sierra Leone to go back down that path. Because we knew what we went through as a nation, and that is still affecting us. The development paradigm is slow, So what we are doing, just target those families. Talk to your mother, talk to your father, talk to your brother. We target the park, like Moyamba Junction, Moyamba Lorry Park. On Wednesday, we will be in Kwenadugu, the main town. And today, we've invited civil society, about 60 organizations from all over the country. Look, let's come and sit. We as Komon-Tok, we are very humble to say, and we have no regret to say we are not experts. The people are the experts. The people have the answers to their problem. All we can do is facilitate a process for those answers to emerge. So today we've invited some organizations, and my colleague here will serve as the chair, so we can facilitate a conversation. What can we do as civil society? How can we influence this process so that we don't go back to those dark days? how can we ensure each Sierra Leonean has a voice? Again, my colleague was talking about engagement. You all talked about engagement. Engagement is the only solution to Sierra Leone, to where we are. Because without engagement, most of them will think they have very legitimate concerns. But it's only through engagement you will deprioritize what you think is the most important thing. So engagement is the key. And I'm also happy to say, from my information, that the leadership of the government have reached out to the international community. For the international community to reach out to the opposition to say, look, we need to engage. We don't want to go back to where we were. The president now fought in the war. So I'm sure he knows what that means. So he will not want us to go back down to that trajectory. So what they are working on is let's engage. And we hope the international community will take that message to the opposition. I'm also very, very happy that they are talking. Yesterday, the All People's Congress made it clear to their supporters that today they will engage on a dialogue. With the Sierra Leone police. They are key. The Sierra Leone we cannot conduct elections without the Sierra Leone police. And the level of trust is an issue. But what can we do? Let's build on that trust. Let's see the police as our partners, as our colleagues. So we all have a role to play. And this is what we are saying. Don't just blame the opposition or the ruling party. Let's blame ourselves. Let's talk to each other. Let's identify the solutions. Let's talk as a family. How can we move on? It's not about just elections.
There's this age gap between those who were around when there was a civil war and those who do not know. So because of this huge gap and lack of information of what actually happened, don't you think the abbreviated version of the TRC report should be key in whoever wins the next election to ensure that peace is, sent down to these kids in that manner?
I totally agree with you. It's like you are speaking to the converted. We did a TRC secondary school version on the TRC, on the recommendations. But then it's on the shelves. We printed about 50,000 copies distributed to schools. They have not been used. And it was produced in line with the curriculum. We worked with the Ministry of Education. The Minister of Education now, Dr.
Senge.
No, he is basic.
Okay, Alpha Professor Wuri.
Professor Wuri, he launched that report. So we have the materials, and this is crucial to Sierra Leone because the age bracket is huge. So how do we get them to understand that what we went through was not good, and we don't want Sierra Leone to go down that path again? How do we engage? Dialogue is the only way to solving our problems. It's not by intimidation or tribalism, hate speech. They just fear the conflict. But let's engage. We are all brothers and sisters. We have nowhere to go. This is our only country. Some of us who've traveled know that. The American people are saying, I want to go to America. Trust me, you go there in a few days, you are bored. You want to come back home. You want to come back home. This is our home. Let us not allow bad politicians, because there are good politicians. Let us not allow bad politicians to influence us. Let us recognize the good politicians and call them as heroes. They are very good. Just listening to that APC executive yesterday talking to the supporters. Say, look, we are going to meet with the Sierra Leone police. PPRC will be there. SNPP will be there. They will all be. That is the message. Let's call out those heroes so that we name and shame those who are sending hate speech. We all have it. On the manifesto, it's like attacking each other.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate. It's like attacking each other. You are replying to the other party. No, engage the people. Speak to the people. Because most of them don't believe in their manifestos. So that is why it's like intimidation.
The issue about messaging, and I know you've been working with communities, from doing bonfires, reconciling communities, and now you're working with kids to call for peace. I saw the news of how the kids were asking their parents, their guardians, to ensure that there is peace during this election. How do we hold the politicians accountable as well? As we get to community, people are taking responsibility. They're asking for peace. In almost every community you go, people want peace. But how do we hold those who are fanning the flames accountable and responsible for what is happening?
I will say this, but with all reservation, that one way is, if you see a party is not being very honest or truthful about peace, don't vote them in. Vote for a party that will sustain peace. That is one way. Again, that's just me being John directly. But I think they all have a role to play. All the political parties have a role to play, either as ruling party or as opposition party. So, but the bottom line is, we have international mechanisms. I want to remind these politicians that one single hate speech could derail our process. We hope it will never get to that point. But look like Rwanda, it was just a conversation that led the country to where they were at that time. So we are saying, be very much aware, be mindful. There is the International Criminal Court. There is the international community. There is a human rights mechanisms. Most of these institutions, they have people documenting what they are saying. So let us be very mindful of what we say, and don't just be too hyper to say things because you are in the thick of things. Mind your words. You are leaders, and because you are leaders, you can be held accountable. So these are the possible ways out. To say, look, we can either use the ICC, we can either use the African Commission on Human and People's Rights, we can either use other human rights mechanisms to hold them accountable. But we hope we don't get to that point. Let us live as a nation and be stable.
Hopefully, we hope that. So let's move to our studio 2, where we have Monica. Good morning, Monica, and welcome to the show.
Good morning.
So young people are very critical in this whole process of elections, and then most times they are blamed as those who are being used, to perpetrate violence, to abuse, to fight, and all of that. As a young person yourself, and the West Africa Youth Network, Western Area Youth Network, sorry, what are you doing in engaging young people? We just spoke about messaging, how politicians will incite young people to get themselves involved in violence. We're just like 5 days to the elections.
Yes, thank you very much. And that is why the Western Region Youth Network is out there on a campaign preaching, giving out peace messages with the hashtag Make Peace Win, because we believe young people, like rightly said, we are most likely the perpetrators of violence. And in some cases, we might be the victims. On Friday, we are out in our street campaign we started from Waterloo, because we know Waterloo is a high peak area when it comes to violence. We engage young people right through Lumley. And so in our messages, we are telling people violence is not the only way. Yes, people know we are young people. When it comes to violence, we are seeing the forefront, but we want to change that mindset now. We want people to see us as agents of change, because we believe violence is not the only way. And one thing that came out during our campaign, some young people said to us, this is hard time for us, for politicians to know, we want to be involved in the electoral process, not as people that will perpetrate violence, but for us to participate in the electoral processes. Because the Western Region Youth Network, our aim is to ensure that we foster peaceful, credible, and inclusive election before, during, and after June 24, 2023 elections.
Okay, and the issue of targeting young people, most times I've seen people, working with young people. It's either those at the universities, those at technical school. Who are you targeting? There is a set of young people who are mostly vulnerable to politicians, and they can be easily used. They can be given money to buy drugs, alcohol, and they are always readily available to be used by politicians. Are you paying attention to them? Are you getting them along with this campaign?
Yes, in fact, they are our targeted people. We don't want to call them the ghetto youth, but we have young people in these vulnerable areas, these vulnerable groups, like people in the attire base, people in the ghetto, Okada riders, keke drivers. They were actually our targeted group, because we started our campaign. It has to be, we're also targeting young people online, because even on the day for election, we're having our hashtag Make Peace Win campaign and social media concert, where we're having people to participate in a concert online. That the idea is just to have to engage young people on that day, so that they will deviate from spreading hate speech, violence messages. So because on that day we'll be having prizes wherein you will contribute, you will have a dialogue. We just want young people to give us maybe a peace song, If you win, you have a prize to it. We want young people to give us a poem, or if you can do an art, anything, any innovative idea you have on election day, because we want to engage them, because that is very crucial. That is the time the young people will use the social media to be spreading hate speech, messages, violence, perpetrating violence. So that's why we are engaging them. Even young people in these deprived communities, they are the people that we are targeting the most, because on that day, we had a set of people, and during our campaign, one thing came out clearly. One of the youth said, "Me this time," and I quote, "I know they allow bullets advise me." That message was very key to me. It tells us that people are now getting the awareness that it's hard time for them to deviate from violence. Instead of them to be perpetrators of violence, they should now be peace ambassadors. We also make it very clear to them on the day for election, we will be crowning young people, youth, as peace ambassadors that will give us the best peace messages, the best peace song, peace poem, just as a way of engaging them on that day, so that they will deviate from violence.
Okay, let me get back to Dr. Mahal. We have been targeting youths, particularly, as Lamana made mention, but again, messaging and the central body of these people who we should target are not those who are educated. We have to accept that fact. These are the boys who get to say, what you left for me now. So these sets of people, who are targeting them? What should be the message sent out to them?
I think civil society is doing well in that particular aspect, considering how you get your funds or which are your target audience. Then this is how civil society also can be able to reach them. So this is what we have been working with community youth. And when you say community youth, we target all those sets. I think what we are experiencing in Sierra Leone is an intergenerational problem. Intergenerational divide is what we have. You know, the elderly do not communicate well to these young people. So I think you rightly said that they probably don't understand what was it that happened during the war. You know, I remember one day I asked my son, I said, "Have you seen the movie Crime Freetown?" He said, "No." I said, "Take a look at that one, watch it. Then you understand why we are all preaching peace in this country." He said, "I've never seen it." And a lot of them have never seen it. And I think we have had discussions in this same studio, maybe the other one, we have been talking about these documentaries that from time to time, we should be displaying these documentaries, even at the village level, for them to be able to see how or what happened during those days. Then they will take their time. But also the messaging should be that even politicians should be held responsible for them to be manipulating the minds of the young to do things that I think are not favorable to the existence of our democracy. We've seen in the recent campaigns, children given placards, children as young as 4 or 5 years, given placards to say this. We have seen children given T-shirts in schools, in their school uniform, in class, campaigning. And these are young children that you see them, most of them you say they're young, they have not even reached the voting age. It's pathetic for us to be disrupting the minds of our young people. It's good to campaign, yes, but you have to know which words you take to these children. You have to know. The first-time voters should be properly educated. And when you take a look at these campaigns that are going on, most of the people that you see are the young people. And these are the ones which they have manipulated their minds in such a way that if it is not this, then it's nothing. So this is the mindset that they have. And so that is how they used to create chaos in certain places. You know, now we, if not so for we, nobody. You know, so this is the mindset, and so they are ready to do anything. And they are the ones which you give me 5,000 or 10,000, I support you. So you ask them to do X, Y, Z, they do it. You give them drugs, they take. And this is what they are looking for, considering the economic situation. So all of these things they are all interconnected, you know. The country is less developed in such a way that we have high youth unemployment rate. what do you expect the young people to be doing? Is it their fault? But I think all of us should be held responsible for what is happening in our country today. And I keep saying that, you see, our problem, Sierra Leone is a peaceful country. Our problem is when it comes to politics, then we begin to live like mad dogs. This is our problem. This is the problem we have. And this is what we should be able to fight against.
John, Dr. Mahoy makes mention of intergenerational mindset, but I want to take that to another level, okay? Using education and entertainment to capture these young people. Of course, ECSL together with AYV, have the Cypher, it's a rap program that they get to do, to just take them out of perpetrating violence and do it through entertainment. Can that be a tangible mechanism after elections?
That's one of what I would describe as very tangible way to reach out to them. And you see, we need to be very creative. I mean, I like that approach. It's a creative way to engage young people, and that's the way out. You see, the gap between the rich and the poor, it's huge. And the gap between the educated and the uneducated, Western education, is huge. The age bracket between those who witness the conflict and those who do not witness the conflict, it's huge. I think it's about 60% of our population is below the age of 30. And most of them, did not experience or could not recall. So we have to be creative to reach out to those people. And, starting from even family people, engage family members, peer pressure, and like the rap approach, like what the Western Area Youth Coalition are doing. These are things that can help Sierra Leone move forward. We can't just let go like that. But my concern is, do we have to wait every 5 years? And I will say, I'm hopeful because the leadership, at least what I observed or what I learned happened over the weekend on Saturday, to be precise, was the vice president engaging the international community. Say, look, like the adults in the room, that's what we need to do. And again, I think it's the same thing within the opposition party. From what I heard yesterday, we are beginning to see adults emerge in the room. We saw what happened over the last 4 or 5 years. When you say, okay, no, we're not participating in this, the repercussion. We're not participating in that, that's the repercussion. But when you engage, you make your point, you engage, you register your point, you move on.
And John, that has been the point about national cohesion most times. When we, like you mentioned, after every other 5 years, we come again to the same discussion. People throughout the 5 years, the period, people be complaining, they've been excluded, and the issue of national cohesion with this election. I was talking to a friend and he was saying, whoever becomes president of this country will have much work to do to unite the nation than even fixing the economy. Because what is very clear is the tension, and we seem very divided. How do we, as we dialogue, but how do we build on this to be sustainable, not to come to it every other 5 years again to talk about national cohesion and tribal issues?
I blame, I don't normally blame, but part of the reason has to do with our external partners. The external partners disengage civil society. Civil society is struggling. And so they only wait for 5 years. And if you observe the level of civil society engagement during this election, it's minimal.
Yeah.
It's very minimal. It's because, some of us, we are prepared for post-election. We don't look at things as an event. It's a process. But there is little or nothing circulating among civil society. That is one problem. And if they are shouting, hey, you have to do X, Y, Z, come support civil society. Come support the third parties. Come support the people of Sierra Leone. Create a sustainable engagement. The government started the civil society dialogue forum. That was a very fantastic opportunity. But again, for some obvious reasons, we were not able to continue that engagement. But we hope we can continue those initiatives on a systemic way, not just episodic, like once every 2 years or 1 year or 5 years. That is what we need in Sierra Leone. because this is where stability comes, and it's related with economy. If people know every 5 years there will be a problem there, will I go in to build a huge factory? I cannot, because I'm thinking after 5 years I'll have to renegotiate with the community. There will be chaos. There will be. Let's send a message to the international community that we can fix our problems.
But as you mentioned as well, how could we take responsibility of our own dealings? In the past 5 years, there's been a lot of tension. We've had you here before being too many people not being part of certain processes, the issue of trust. How do we, as a people, as a nation, take responsibility of uniting ourselves?
I would say this is a direct message to every Sierra Leonean, educated or not, whether you're in the village or not. I know AYV is almost covering the entire country. Those who are listening, please take this message as a personal message. What can you as an individual do for Sierra Leone? Don't just wait for what you can benefit from this election, from the political parties, but what can you do to sustain the peace? Without the peace, we are here in Sierra Leone during the war, traveling to the regions. You cannot travel at certain points in the day. But now I wake up at 12 at night. I travel, I get to point B. I move from point B to point C. It's a huge wealth. The peace we have, it's our wealth. Let us protect, let us defend that wealth, regardless of the political party you belong to. And I believe if we're able to go through this last hurdle, let us don't treat elections as every 5 years. Hopefully the PR system will address the intermittent gaps of the by-elections now and then, and I'll look at, hopefully, a stabilized country for 5 years and maybe beyond.
Okay, we'll come back to hear from Dr. Maoy about issues of national cohesion, which is very important as well as we move to the elections. We have just 5 days to Sierra Leoneans going to the polls to elect the president and other elected representatives. But it's 9 a.m. We take the summary of the news. We'll be coming back to continue the conversation. Keep watching and listening.
Yes, so in our top stories this morning, during his last campaign in Moamba District before the June 24 multi-elections, President Julius Maada Bio has turned on the electricity switch to light up the Moamba township, which he says has gone without electricity for over 30 years. He also used the opportunity to thank the former president, Dr. Anis Nkrumah, for condemning violence and encourage citizens to uphold democracy.
See what you don't do. From Moyamba, yeah, now a major district headquarters. From where lights go now, I don't know which year, over 30 years. Today, I officially turn on when I light. One country, one people. The water will not done it, but the pipe they come. By the grace of God, I get for Kanaya back for turn on the tap so that Moyamba will be the city where it's supposed to be. We do 14 kilometers with the tap from Songo Junction up to the bridge. Then we defend the money for finish from the bridge. Take inside Moyamba. We go get tar road from here, say go reach now. That's Songo Junction. One country, one people. We begin at the go school now, not so. That's not the best thing we'll for do.
To be honest with you. All right, another story, the coalition of Talking Drum Studios, the Sierra Leone Association of Journalists, and the Independent Radio Network for Inclusive and Peaceful Election in Sierra Leone has engaged 8 of the 16 administrative and political districts of Sierra Leone on a national dialogue to address emerging issues and find ways to address political potential conflict and violence before, during, and after the elections.
Elections and beyond, we should leverage our reputation and standing on interfaith relations and translate that into dialogue as a means of addressing our differences. TS and Scotland, therefore, all political parties, the government, traditional leaders and rulers, CSOs, government partners, researchers, women and youth groups to end all forms of violence, hate speech, and build peace in our communities. City education and those awareness. The importance of all of this to encourage initiatives to promote both education, including informing citizens about the rights and responsibilities, and the importance of the participation in the process is very key. The responsibility of the media in promoting peace and social cohesion, and bias for the responsible reporting, avoiding dissemination of hate speech and disinformation that can incite violence or division. The inclusion of youth in the process to empower youth, encourage the creation of opportunities for young people to actively participate.
And finally, the Minister of Agriculture and Forestry, Abubakar Karim, has encouraged the private to invest in the agriculture sector as the government is providing incentives like tax waivers and land to those who are interested to go into large-scale agriculture investment in the country. The minister made this call during a visit to the Tumabom Agriculture Project in Bont District.
That we give, particularly if you're coming to invest in agriculture, all your equipments are duty-free, and there are other opportunities, tax concessions that can also be looked at. We also have, as part of the African Continental Free Trade Program, we are part of that. So anything you produce in Sierra Leone, especially for the West African sub-region, you do not pay tax. So there are quite a huge number of incentives, and we try to encourage investors who are coming. And one of the big concerns usually is that to do with acquisition of land. And as a result of that, there has been very good land policy that has been developed together with the Ministry of Lands, and we work alongside that to ensure that it is beneficial both for the investor and for the country at large.
All right, that's all we have in our top stories this morning. It's barely 5 days to the June 24 multi-state elections. Like Amadou said, we'll also be bringing you live broadcast. Today, the ballot papers will arrive at Silunge International Airport.
Yes, our team is all set at the Lunge International Airport, waiting for the arrival of the plane that will bring in the ballot papers and other sensitive materials for the 24th June multi-tier elections. As we mentioned, we'll be also bringing you the former Vice President of Nigeria, Professor Yemi Osibanjo, who is head of the Commonwealth Observer Mission, will be addressing the media today at the Radisson Hotel. We'll be bringing you live updates on that. And as well, the PPRC is mediating a meeting between the APC, the security sector, and the CSL at Bintumani Conference Center later in the day, and we'll bring in that live to you today again. Welcome back, Doc. I was asking about the issue of national cohesion. Most times we've spent 5 years. I know we've had you here several times talking about how do we unite this nation? How do we get politicians to sit at the table and discuss for in the interest of the country? How do we get to this? We are few days to elections, tensions are high, we'll get to that. And after the elections again, we start talking about national cohesion.
You know, the problem eating us in this country is about the winner takes all syndrome. Once that is solved, all of these problems will not get. You know, I think we have reached a point wherein I think we should have what we call inclusivity. Inclusive governance. You know, I keep saying that providing equal opportunities for people, equal opportunities for all is necessary. You know, if we are in a state where there are equal opportunities for people, you know, I will not see a situation where politicians will be using people to demonstrate or to cause mayhem against their opponents, because you know you have trust in the government that say, oh, this one we come, we go, we brother and sister themselves now we own part, then go benefit, you know. So even though there is not a significant correlation to to say that each government, since we have started in 1962, after independence, has not been including people from the opposition, to help to be in the government system of each political party, considering the times the APC has ruled or the SLPP has ruled the country. There have always been people from the north being present at the SLPP government, so there has always been people from the southeast present in the APC government. But you see, how to change that mindset, because this is what they used to preach. Once they want to divide the populace, that is what they used to preach against their opponents. And that is what they should stop doing if they want us to coexist as a country. You actually know the fact that, this political party have at least some amount of people from our end. Maybe, for instance, in the case of SLPP now, you find Northerners being included in that. And in the reign of APC, there were Southeasterners included. Why are they not preaching this? Why would they preach otherwise? That is where one of the problem comes in. And the issue of national cohesion, you see, we have structures. We have had reports that have made recommendations. The TLC report is there. It's made recommendations. And then we have been working to some extent trying to see how best we'll be able to implement those recommendations as a government. Even though I will not call it a total waste for the constitutional review, which made recommendations and tried to prefer those recommendations in the past government. When they looked down on most of those recommendations, and then they have to go back to begin. Now, when they have issues with present government, then they want to talk because they had all the opportunity to look at those issues that were raised in the constitutional review, to look at them and say, okay, let us have a referendum to include these policies or these laws that will hold people accountable. There was the environment. So that environment is what they as politicians, be you APC or SLPP, they should look at those recommendations and take the people of Sierra Leone seriously. They don't take us seriously. They don't take the people of Sierra Leone seriously. This is why we are in such a state. And they should begin to take us seriously. And when you talk about peace and national cohesion as well, I talked about opportunities, having equal opportunities. Once people are satisfied with their basic necessities, man, they go on a beach.
Yeah.
Man, they go enjoy themselves.
There's no reason to fight.
Exactly. At least, say, when we working on money, the price of fuel is down. At least I can put food on my table 3 times a day for my kids and family. I'll be able to provide. I have electricity. There is water running. People are going about their businesses. So we have to think carefully on how we are able to spread so that the gap between the rich and the poor becomes a little close, so that people will feel satisfied. But as long as you see that gap, that divide is there, people are always agitated. People, little things will spark tension. And this is why we are in this. So I think our major problem is how we shape our economy and make equal opportunities for people.
For everyone. John, want to?
Yes, you see, maybe we are overusing the word peace and national cohesion. Let us try to also be mindful of the fact that most things are happening in Freetown. And, inclusivity cuts across the decision-making process. Political participation, not just at national politics, but even at community level, at regional level. So I think the policies, we have very good policies as a country, but implementing those policies, the decentralization, the devolution process, they will send and say, okay, Olande. But how do you send and then give the authority for the people in the district to use what you send, for them to use it to address their own concerns? But so basically, it's like lip service. And we can, as a nation, move from point A to point B, or even to point Z, if we are together. There's that adage, that when we are together, we can do a lot more things. So basically, national cohesion should be the watchword for any political party. Should be the watchword for the government of Sierra Leone. Avoid this divide and rule. Let's work together. Even the opposition party, forget about the attack, engage. Let's dialogue. That's the only way we can move from here to there. Final message to the people. This election is our election. This election is Sierra Leone's election. It's not for APC or SAPP. We are voting for either of those parties or the other parties, but we have to decide. We as the people, let us see it as our opportunity. Whatever you think is right for Sierra Leone is what you should look at. Consider the future of your children, the future of the country, and then make an informed decision when you go in 5 days from now.
We take few messages and we try to round up this conversation. I don't really understand our people dancing on the rent and so on for these politicians who can't discuss the Auditor General's report where billions of loans are stolen that supposedly to be meant for development. These politicians are not helping our future.
Another one says, in other words, tribalism is the name of the game. Let's stop shying away from the truth and always ask, what benefits do tribalism bring to Sierra Leoneans? Let's be true to ourselves and answer. It has nothing to do with unconnectedness, and it's easy to brainwash gullible citizens who are used to unusual sound bites for decades, yet leaves them in abject poverty. Non-cohesion are just words that makes no difference to the lives of millions of Sierra Leoneans.
Mosdi says, if you want to know the problem of our country, just follow the comment section. APC is saying it's SLPP and vice versa. Less than 1% of the comments are actually and factually identifying the root causes of our country's problem. I'm worried.
The other one says, as long as we continue to only discuss this, we are going to be in the same issue. We are always going to experience problems because this is the painful act. Young people are not interested in the politics itself.
Samuka Sano says, when we are talking about peace and national cohesion, let us not base it only on election time. We need to continue even after election and suggest that whoever becomes a leader of this country bring together all peace ambassadors to continue preaching peace and national cohesion in the country.
Michael here is saying it's very sad that a country like Sierra Leone is yet to embrace ourselves.
Estocia Milton King, education is a problem. We have an uneducated youth population. Therefore, all political parties should support the free quality education.
Another one says, Dr. Aissata Mahoy, what would you say to Sierra Leoneans as we approach elections to maintain peace, especially in a local dialect?
Fode Mustafa too says, who is making the hate speech? Can't you name and shame them publicly to stop them from doing so further? What is wrong with the civil societies today? They are not being very vociferous as they were before this time. Let's name and shame them.
Mosia is saying, this is true, Dr. Aissata. They don't take the Sierra Leone people seriously. That is just the truth.
Ali Conte says, thank you, Monica and the Western Region Youth Network and partners for this wonderful campaign on non-violence ahead of the elections.
Okay, the one I have here reads, Komon-Tok is doing an amazing job. Mr. Coker, what do you have to say on family issues that bring hate speech and tribalism to Sierra Leoneans?
The final one I'll take is from Ruji. It says civil societies are not really practicing their activities. It's not just about talking to the young people or those that were not alive during the war. Make documentaries, show live videos about the war, like Soyo Samora did, so that people will understand what it means not to have peace. I'll take one final one from Swissman. Is a regular. I'll take two actually. We have two regular people who contribute to our program. Every year, politicians are drafting fake manifesto, and every year they keep fighting for power instead of fighting to give the people a better life. 62 years, no water, no proper food security project. They choose to forget their responsibility. All they know is police officers and public intimidation. May God change their mindset. And the final one is from Alaji Amar Kebe. The problem is lack of honesty. What most of these leaders do and say just don't correspond. How can you sign peace agreements and you turn around and sabotage them? when they were signing these agreements, why didn't they raise those concerns then? Nowadays to the polls, you start making all kinds of problems. Something just don't add up. That's from Alaji Amaki. We'll take those final messages. I'll start with you, John. Civil society, again, we come to the point. People, it's like us, the media, journalists. Most time people tell me, you should be talking, you should be saying this. The expectation, is very high from the public.
I totally agree. The expectation is high, but some of us are using a different approach. You don't speak for people. You create an avenue where their voices, heard, so that they can speak for themselves. What we try to do is to invite the media to communities, to talk to people. Sometimes it helps. On the issue of documentary, Komon-Tok have produced a couple of documentaries. It's on our website, Komon-Tok, the .com website, not the .org, where you have the Komon-Tok, the feature-length, the education version. No, it's all there. But I also want to say, we all have a role. Civil society now will be castigated. But I think it's important for others to also ask, what are we doing alongside civil society? Is it just to work on the blame game? No. We should not embark on the blame game at this time. Let us look at our individual roles and responsibilities. What can we do as Sierra Leoneans? Forget about blame game. APC, SAPP, ECSL, what can we do as Sierra Leoneans? How can we engage? How can we influence one or two people? By influencing, say, if you target 5, everyone targets 5, the whole country will be peaceful. So let us look at what we can do individually. And for CSOs, we will meet tomorrow. And let's see how we can de-escalate. We are focusing on peace and non-violence. And the beauty of CSO is the complementarity. New is focusing on the election itself. We are looking at the environment, the non-violence aspect, the community engagement. So basically, it's a process, and we will emerge as victorious civil society community, as always.
Hopefully. Doc?
Yes. My word to Sierra Leoneans, because I'm just trying to respond to what one caller says. My message would be that Sierra Leoneans, this is the time to decide whether we want peace or whether we want development, or we continue to be in chaos. So my advice is we should be focused. On Saturday, we go and vote as peaceful as ever. You vote, you leave the voting place and go back to your house and stay calm. Let no politician incite you to commit violence or chaos in any community. You get yourself to be blamed. And also remember, once that mistake is made, you are not only putting yourself at risk, you're putting the entire country at risk. Because this particular elections is one of its kind, and one of those elections that will decide whether Sierra Leone will grow to catch up with other countries in terms of development. We're tired of being in a situation where even when you go to some hospitals, it's difficult for you to get the required drugs or the required treatment. You have to be flown abroad for other services. We want a situation where we should stop fixing things that will be spoiled by politicians. I'm saying this because they use these young people to destroy property, like yesterday in Pujol, a house was touched.
Yeah, we saw the videos.
And then,
some people were wounded.
Yes.
Yeah.
And how long do we continue to be in such situation? You have to rebuild. Look at the incidents in Tombo, Bombali, all of these things. Each time you have to think about what to fix. When you are in this situation, you will not be able to grow. So I'm looking at how peaceful we should be towards these elections and beyond, because the post-election as well can be very critical after the outcome of the results. So I just want to say Sierra Leoneans should stay calm. You go and cast your votes, you get the result from the required institution, and then you celebrate calmly in your house.
Okay.
Yeah? If how they call a multina safe able for drink after the results, elect na you candidates where you want, na in win or loss, now for celebrate peacefully, at least unblock the peace of the country.
Okay.
After election, let us all celebrate because it's peaceful.
Yeah.
So whether you lose or win, we should celebrate as a nation.
Yeah.
I think that should be our watchword.
Yeah. Finally, let's go to Monica. What could be your message to young people out there, those you're working with? What should they know? We are a few days to the elections.
So, like Doc was saying, in our Western Region Network, we have our slogan that we always say, the SAFU method on the day for election, because we really want to change the mindset of politicians that think we should be used as tools to perpetrate violence for them. We want them to change the mindset, for them to see us as agents of change, as peace ambassadors. That is why we always say on election day, go vote SAFU. You go now, you host SAFU. You wait for the result SAFU. When ECSL announce the result, if na party win, you celebrate SAFU. If your party lost, you cry SAFU. If you know okay the result, you want to go to court, you go to court SAFU. At the end of the day, make peace win for everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Monica.
Thank you very much, Monica, for taking your time to talk to us. Mr. Coker, Dr. Aisata Mahoy, thank you very much for taking your time to talk to us this morning. You're watching AYV. Don't go, we'll be right back shortly.
Every day, the world wakes up to you. Millions of people are getting ready for you. For shopping, travel expenses, utility bills, trade, and commerce. If we all have wishes, then what is your financial transaction wish?
I'd like to have a choice.
I'd like convenience.
I'd like to pay for goods and services on the go.
I'd like to pay utility bills on the go. Out of credit and data, buy some mobile top-up, still on my phone. Oops, light out. I'll buy some ETSA, still on my phone.
I'd like to make payment from my account to another account through my mobile phone.
As a chef for company, I would like my staff to receive their salaries through bulk e-payment without the risk of transporting cash.
Rokel Commercial Bank Simcopo does it all.
Rokel Commercial Bank Simcopo. Think of it as
money when you're close to home and when you're away from home for unexpected expenses, and money for those times when cash fails.
If you can dream it, you can become it. If you can imagine it, you can achieve it.
Rokel Commercial Bank Simcopo is all you need.
AYV International, a truly global media outlet. Our media platforms can be found across the world, including Africa, America, Asia, Europe, Caribbean, the Pacific, and more. Our media services include broadcasting, media production of documentaries, movies, and a wide range of audiovisual services, advertising and public relations, sporting and events coverage, photography, and a reliable media equipment rental unit, as well as media training. Contact us at our International AYV Media Centre, 18 Soho Square, London, United Kingdom, W1D 3QH. Telephone us on 074 967 456 33. Or you can send us an email to ayv.international@ayvnews.com or ayv.international@gmail.com. You can also find us on our social media platforms on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Welcome back. You're watching Wake Up Salone here on AYV Television. Don't forget to send your thoughts and comments on issues we are discussing this morning. Now, in our final segment, the International Republican Institute advances democracy and freedom across the world, and also link people rather with their governments, guide politicians to responsive to citizens, and motivate people to engage in the political process. Now in Sierra Leone, IRI help its partners with training and capacity building in CSOs and the media for elections. Well, to get more updates on their activities, we have been joined in the studios by Jimmy Sankathia, who is a resident program director of the International Republican Institute. Good morning, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be back again.
Yes. So let's start with your goal generally in Sierra Leone. What do you aim to do?
Yeah. So basically, we are funded by the United States Agency for International Development. And specifically in Sierra Leone, we've been here since 2017. And part of what we've been doing is to work with political parties and civil society. But we've been heavy on working with civil society to try to strengthen civil society's capacity to deliver the services that they committed themselves to deliver. And so we've done that working with community-based organizations, national civil society organizations, and just engaging them more extensively around, as I said, some of the governance issues that they are determined to support. And we do that by providing direct funding to civil society organizations, by doing capacity building training, by mentoring civil society organizations to be able to deliver those. Because as you may have read, the International Republican Institute is one international organization that promote democracy around the world. We are in about 100 countries around the world, just strengthening democracy, because we also recognize that democracy, to a larger extent, is on the decline, and we must do all we can not to allow those who don't want to see democratic states to succeed. And so part of our work is to be able to strengthen that. So currently I manage both our Gambia and Sierra Leone offices. So I've been here for the last 1 month to support our civil society partners and our team on the ground to increase our role in the electoral process, but also supporting those civil society organizations to be able to do exactly what we set ourselves up to do. Currently, we work with the Independent Radio Network, Talking Drum Studio, Campaign for Good Governance, National Elections Watch. Those civil society organizations are some of the credible, I would say, democratic civil society organizations in Sierra Leone. So strengthening their ability and capacity to be able to do what they've been doing gave us pleasure.
Okay. So specifically, you know, what are you supporting them with funds, or you're supporting them with capacity to implement the projects, or you're just giving them the money and they implement what their programs and projects are?
So first of all, of course, as we are aware, I've been here for the last decade.
Yeah.
And I've worked previously for Search for Common Ground. And so I know all these civil society organizations, because when I worked for Search for Common Ground, we also funded them. So we put out a RFP, and then most of these organizations apply. So we assess their capacity, and then we give them funding. So currently, for example, we are giving funding to the Independent Radio Network to do civic and voter education. We're doing the same for CGG. So CGG is actually engaging people-to-people engagement around the civic and voter education, while RN is doing the radio component of civic and voter education. New is helping us to look at the reforms that were introduced in the new Public Elections Act. And so they're trying to create civic awareness, public awareness about those reforms, so people are fully aware of what were the reforms that were passed by Parliament for this 2023 election. That's what they're doing. Talking Drum Studio, we've been able to support them to deploy what we call long-term security observers. Because before today, electoral processes in Sierra Leone has been marked by violence. And so all of us as stakeholders have been concerned about the degree of violence in Sierra Leone when it comes to elections. And so what we wanted to do, working with Talking Drum Studio, is to deploy a set of Sierra Leoneans across the country to monitor what is happening when it comes to violence and report those. So just last week, Talking Drum Studio released its first report analyzing the extent to which violence is taking place across the country, which of those violence are being reported to the police, which are the ones that haven't been reported. So they have a very unique system in which they capture all the data based on what their long-term security observers are reporting from the field, because they are on the ground and reporting those kinds of information. So they are capturing those and at real time updating stakeholders. So for example, the Sierra Leone Army, the police, ONS, they were all in that forum. It was very interesting discussions around what is happening in the field versus what is actually being reported to the police. So the police were interested to say, look, can you give us the data so that we can use that data to check with our regional team and our district level team to see what are they doing about these violent incidents that have been reported. Because of course, Talking Drum Studio reports suggested that there were some incidents that were reported to the police even before it got to them, and there were some that were not reported to the police. So the police were interested in knowing which of those incidences that have been reported to them at their local offices, what have they done about that? What are those incidents that have not been reported? So it's those kinds of work that we are doing. And on our own as the International Republican Institute, over the last few months, working with the National Electoral Commission, PPRC at the local level, we've been able to extensively engage, citizens, stakeholders around, for example, the proportional representation.
Okay.
We did a rapid assessment and realized that there was a huge gap around in stakeholders' knowledge about what they knew about the proportional representation. So what we wanted to do was to increase stakeholders' knowledge. So we spoke to the EC, and then we launched a program called Regional Stakeholder Engagement on the PR system. So the first thing we did was to try to assess what level of knowledge people had about the PR system in Sierra Leone. That was the first thing. We did that in a simple pre and post assessment. So we brought stakeholders together and we assessed their knowledge, and we found out there were huge gaps. And so we used that opportunity to be able to fill those gaps first, to increase citizens' awareness around what PR system means, but also which other countries in the region that are using PR system. So that it doesn't look as if PR system was just a Sierra Leonean thing. We wanted people to know that PR systems are also being used in other countries in the region. And so coming to Sierra Leone to use PR system was not a strange thing. But then also we provided a forum for the EC staff on the ground to be able to share with stakeholders about what they were already doing. You know, one interesting thing out of that conversation that came up was the fact that, as I say, I've been here for a decade, and issues of violence has been a huge issue.
Yeah.
We launched our activity just around the time when the EC was accepting nomination from political parties. And so we invited some of the groups, largely that are not invited to these kinds of forums. The police, for example, the precinct warrant, all the different groups that are not invited. So they came to this event, and at the forum, I asked one of the senior police officers and said, look, you chose to come to our event when nomination is taking place. And we know in Sierra Leone when nomination is taking place, police are very busy. And he said to me, no, it's so interesting that while nomination is taking place in Poloko today, we are able to come and sit in your forum because there's no pressure on us. There has always been pressure on us when political activities are taking place. But in this one, there's less pressure, so we have some time on our hands. I think that was quite profound because as a country that have experienced violence in all by-elections, as far as I have been here, and in most of the political engagements, I think that was quite important. Unfortunately for us, we reported that it seems as if violence will be on the decline in these elections.
Yeah, but the Talking Drum report, the data I saw is that it's on the increase.
That's what I'm saying. I say at that time, just about the time when the nomination was taking place, when I spoke to that police officer, our assessment was telling us that there might be a decrease in violent incidences. But after that period, we see that there's an uptick, unfortunately, which is not good for the country. Because we thought the PR system was one instrument that will help Sierra Leone to appreciate going to such a major democratic process without violent incidences. But we are seeing now an uptick, which is quite unfortunate. So it just tells you that things can change overnight at any point in time, especially in Sierra Leone, unfortunately.
That leads me to the question about sustainability. With this support you're giving institutions, you know, civil society, the media as well, what's the sustainability plan with your own model of working with institutions in the country?
So, of course, as I said, working with civil society organizations, we have already predetermined what their capacity level were and what the gaps were. So what we try to do with civil society organizations is to continuously engage them so that we help them fill those gaps to sustain their activities over a long period of time. But we are here to stay. So part of our sustainability strategy is to continuously engage with those organizations to help them fill those gaps. So we're not just providing funding because funding is available. We're working with them to help them fill those gaps. So wherever we find gaps, we try to help them to say, you need to pay attention to this point. But importantly, we want to be able to drive civil society organizations to continue to increase their ability to partner, to work together. Because one group cannot do it all. I think the reason why the National Elections Watch has been very successful over about 2 decades now is because they've been able to work together, work with over 400 civil society organizations across the country. So you see everyone bringing their strength together, even if they don't have funding. I've seen that. Sometimes you go to these activities without funding, yet they go there. And that's what we want to drive civil society organizations towards. To reach to a point where even if donors do not give them money, they are still able to survive. The Independent Radio Network, for example, is doing similar kind of efforts, even though it's very tough, because we know the media landscapes get little funding from everywhere. So we are also trying to work with them over time to make sure that they are sustainable in a way that they do not need to wait for donor funding. And I think that is one important thing we all working in Sierra Leone need to work on. Because, for example, the presidential debate that was very successful the last time did not take place this time because there were not funding. We had some money and we put that up front. But I think the team felt that what we had were quite limited, and what they wanted was more. And in the efforts to try to raise funds, time caught up with everyone. So the presidential debate was not held. I feel quite sad.
Of which you were part of the last
I was the
time.
chair. I chaired the presidential debate committee at that time. Unfortunately, I was not in the space when all the decisions about the president was being made. I was away working in the Gambia. We came in actually to re-establish our presence here in January. And it was a little late to be able to work on anything else because you were very involved. You know exactly what it took us to get to putting together a very successful presidential debate. And I have wanted that presidential debate to be sustained over a long period of time. But because we depend on other people to give us funding, once they say no to us, these things do not go ahead. And we need to change that to be able to look with team. And AYV was very, very supportive. I know we provided some funding last time in 2018, but just because AYV put forward its capacity, it helped us to get ahead. And I understood they were also willing to do that. But then the other side, in terms of the complementary funding, did not come. So we don't have a presidential debate. I'm quite sad by that. And I really look forward to a situation where we can be able to build an institution that do not depend on external funding to allow us to achieve the objectives we want to achieve. Because presidential debate is very important to any democratic processes as it is with Sierra Leone. Unfortunately, we didn't get it done this time around. Quite unfortunate.
You know, let's delve into post-election, especially with your partners. You know, we have been speaking earlier on the issues of violence, hate speech, and the like. When we go beyond election, when parties are, win power or take power. But what would be some of your strategies that you would, love to implement with these your partners to ensure that your work does not limit to elections only?
It's quite unfortunate that we are speaking the same things we said last time in 2018. I was here. The messages I hear us passing around were the same messages we passed around in 2018. I think what we need to do, we need to have a national conversation about what are the lessons we learned throughout these processes, 2007, 2012, 2018, 2023. What are the lessons that we are learning? How do we want to put those lessons up front to change the narratives in 2028, 2029, whatever it is? So what I think RR will want to lead on is to be able to see how we bring everyone together. Minus political parties will come in first, but the drivers of democracy lies in the hands of ordinary citizens. And civil society play that role, that crucial role. So I think having an opportunity to have a national conversation about what have we learned, ask ourselves, genuinely, what have we learned? And what we have learned, if we're able to document what we've learned, and ask ourselves, what do we do about what we've learned? Preparing to not get us to where we are in 2028. I think for me, that's where we are. And so, Matt take up the opportunity to be able to drive that process. I say Matt because we are an international organization. The legitimacy lies with the national organization to be able to do that. We can support them from the back. So we let them see the benefit for having a national conversation. I recall in 2018, one of the things we suggested to New, which came up front was, look, can you take all the recommendations coming from observers, put that into a document that you could use to follow up? And I think it worked very well to some extent. But as I said, when you depend on other people to give you money, they determine how you use their money and for what reason. I think that's part of the challenge that we are faced with. But if we are able to sit together after this process, given that we are all concerned about the state of violence in Sierra Leone and what we need to do to address those challenges that the country faces, if we are able to come together and identify in a way that help us know exactly what the challenges we faced over the last maybe 2, 3, 4 elections, and document those and accept that we need to sit together to be able to work on strategy to address these, will come up. I, as an individual, have some very radical suggestions to make to Sierra Leone, but I will make those after these elections. You know the reason why? It might influence a lot of things. And I would say that based on my experience working in the region, Nigeria, Gambia, Sierra Leone, Lebanon, working in those places, but also living here, living with Sierra Leoneans. I think we need to alter some of our identities to allow us to have the peace we need. If we don't, we are going nowhere. We'll come back in 2029, 2028, and we are still asking ourselves the same questions We were asking in 2018, and we are asking today. We will ask those questions in the next elections if we don't do that. I call it radical because we have to take deep breath, bury our ego, and say, you know what? For the sake of Mama Salone, let we do this. If we don't do it, we get trouble. What day before we?
Okay, I'm going to take a statement from IRI, okay? It says here, in a true democracy, no one is too small to make a difference. With that particular sentence, with the upcoming elections, especially to youth, what would you say in terms of youth making a difference towards peaceful elections?
So first of all, the young people in Sierra Leone have been emotionalized. Emotionalization is part of what is leading young people to be to where they are. I recall in the Talking Ground Studio conference that you just announced, they for the first time mobilized some of the cliques to come and sit down and listen to what people are saying. No one cares about them. No one bring them on board, but yet we want them to be peaceful. How do you forget me, but think that I'm supposed to do what you want me to do? Even in our homes, when we refuse to meet the basic needs of our children, they become very disrespectful to us. So our young people are being disrespectful to the Republic of Sierra Leone because it seems as if we have forgotten them. We sit in these cozy studios and make fabulous promises, but on the ground there is something completely happening that we are not fully aware of. So I think if we want to target young people, we cannot go about targeting them during elections. It's the wrong time to target them. Okay? I mean, the Guru Kata, the Cheno, Ba, they all know when it comes to youth issue in my country, they know I was a leader for young people. So I have a very good sense of what young people's needs are and how to address those needs. What I have not been able to do as an individual in Sierra Leone is that my scope of work has not driven me directly into what needs to happen. Because to deal with young people is very critical. You need to be able to meet them at their point of need to address the needs that they have. You can't do that during elections. We can only encourage them to avoid being misused and emotionalized. But we need to engage them just after the election, and that engagement has no timeline. We can say we engage in them for 2 months. We cannot say we engage in them for 6 months. We cannot say we engage in them for 2 years. Young people engagement has no timeline. And I think that is where youth development practitioners make the mistake. They think that if you bring a project for 6 months, you will change young people. No way. Because you know what? Young people are the only sector that graduates. So when you pass 35 years old, you are no more a young person. You might think young, but you are not a young person. When you pass 17, you enter 18, you are now a young person. So they graduate, so you move from one level to another. So there is no point in time to be able to have a time frame that you engage with young people, because as one group is leaving the youth stage, another group of people are entering. So if you have a time frame, then you miss out. Those who will be 36 will be missing out when they have passed the youth age. Those who were 17 and entering 18, you have no program for them. So we need to be able to strategically target how we engage young people without putting a timeline to it. So even if the EU wanted to provide funding, for example, USAID wanted to provide funding, for example, we should be able to say to them, no, you cannot tell us that this project is for 3 months or for 6 years or for 2 years. Let's agree that there's a vision that we are driving to be able to bring young people together to draft a process that they have a stake in. If we want to make young people to have a stake in the democratic process in Sierra Leone, we should engage in the day after we vote. When there's no incidents to compare us to stay away, let's start engaging them. And that engagement has to move away from regionalism. That is why I say I have a radical suggestion to make to Sierra Leone. Young people are included.
We'll definitely have you after the election for that radical suggestion. But, you know, in all of this, you know, the involvement of people in the democratic process is very important. You know, how much do you ensure that, you know, things you do are people-led? The citizens are involved in the projects you support or the work you do?
So I will come to that, but let me help you understand that in Sierra Leone, we don't worry about involving people in politics. I mean, in terms of coming to the election, because Sierra Leone is one of the countries in the world where turnout is always high, at least more than 80%. Other countries we struggle because turnout is always not more up to 50%. So in the US, in Liberia, everywhere, we mobilize people to get interested in the process. In Sierra Leone, people are very interested. Unfortunately, they are interested because they have something to protect. Their regional hegemony in the political process. That's the unfortunate thing. So what we are fighting as RR working on is to be able to help people to see the benefit of staying peaceful. So throughout the process, we've been engaged with extensive engagement around issues of non-violence election. We have professionals from the Peace and Conflict Department of the University of Sierra Leone to work with us across the regions to bring people together. I can say to you that over the last 2 weeks, we've had every district having extensive non-violent engagement in their communities, because I led one of those training, because we established that there's a gap between knowledge of stakeholders and what is practically happening on the ground. So we wanted to help them fill that gap. And we were able to inspire them to go back to their communities. We gave them some minimum support. Each district had from us small money, T-shirts, banners, and they went back to their district and they did mobilization. They did two important things. They did radio engagement to be able to expand on what they learned from our training, and they did community engagement. So we have the videos, we have the photos for all the districts with our team that came. So we've been able to reach to over 700 persons, stakeholders across the country through our different levels of training. As I said, I'm in the region, and we are going back again today to be able to look at some of the critical elements around what has happened so far, where we are as a country, and what is it that we need to do in the next few days towards the casting of the vote. So I can say to you that we've been able to mobilize people directly by bringing stakeholders together, and indirectly by our stakeholders that we mobilize and train, going back to the communities to be able to engage with people, both on the radio and engaging citizens. We have been able to determine that these engagements are quite important. But of course, it's happening a little late. That's the truth.
Yeah.
It's actually happening a little late. So that's one lesson that we all need to learn and build on, so that in the future, whatever we want to do together, we need to start as early as we can.
What is very obvious and clear is the need for dialogue, at the higher level, the politicians, the political parties, and all of that. What could be your role in ensuring that we have the political leaders sit on a table and understand that the tension that we're having presently could not help with the elections?
So what I can see is that, when you cut the hair of the snake, what you have is an ordinary rope. What has been happening with those who call our political leaders is because they have people who they can communicate with down. So what we are doing as RRI is to first engage those who are down to understand the issues that they need to understand, so that when the people from up engage with them, they are able to advise and guide the people that are up. So as I speak to you tomorrow, we have a big dialogue session in McKinney. We're bringing together all the political, stakeholders in that region, including Konon. So if you want, you can send your team there to go and see what will be happening tomorrow.
Sure.
What we want to be looking at is that we're bringing key people together. We're getting the Electoral Commission, we're getting the Peace Commission, we're getting the National Elections Watch, we're getting representatives of the long-term security observers, we're getting representatives of long-term observers deployed by the National Elections Watch to come to that dialogue session and make a presentation about what's happening on the ground. What is it that we need to be aware of, and what they advise us to do? Because if you bring people who are having practical experiences on the ground to speak about what their experiences are, it makes a big difference. So we bring, as I said, key stakeholders from all the region. For example, Puloko, Karene, Falaba, McKinney, Konon. We're bringing all of those, we're bringing them together in McKinney tomorrow. And then on Thursday, we're bringing those in the east and in the south in Bo.
Okay.
And so we're inviting you to come and cover that, to just sit together, to say, look, we have 2 days to the elections. We have 1 day to the election. Where are we as a country? Where are we as stakeholders? Beyond that, we've been putting out a couple of messages. So we developed a couple of messages in partnership with those groups we've been working with, both in Creole and in English. And we put that out on social media. It's on community radios across the country, just to encourage people to know that this is about Sierra Leone, not any political party, not anyone, not any individual. If we don't together draft a process that allows Sierra Leone to survive, we are only damaging ourselves. Because I can assure you, if you cross any of the borders here in wartime from Sierra Leone, people will welcome you, but they will never see you the way they saw you when you drove your car, got to the border, and the border securities welcome you because you have all your authentic documents to be able to cross over, and you drive freely to go in. If you go with your bundles on your head, no one respects you. And we want Sierra Leoneans to continue to cross the neighboring borders with respect.
Thank you very much, Jimmy. I don't know if you have a question,
that's all.
but like you mentioned, you've been around. You know, you've seen how things happen here. We're a few days to the elections. What message would you want to leave with the Sierra Leone community, and especially those that are involved in this election, the election management bodies, the political parties, and the Sierra Leoneans who you say always come out to vote? We hardly have voter apathy, people not coming out. What will you want to leave them with? We'll definitely have you after the election to talk more about your work and what you want to share with us.
Definitely. So first of all, I mean, it's critical for Sierra Leone to remain peaceful. I encourage every Sierra Leonean to think about their children. When I was doing a training in the North, I conducted an exercise called My Identity. And I asked those who were in the front to say, if your mother is from the North and your father is from the South, come in a cycle. And people didn't know that they had relatives, they had that kind of connection. Mm-hmm. So they had that identity that showed that even though I live in the North, but my mother is actually from the South. I did the same in the South and said, if you have a relative living in the North, come in a cycle. And people identify that they have their relatives living in the North and they came in a cycle. What that was trying to show to Sierra Leone is that it doesn't matter where you live. You have connections somewhere.
Yeah.
And so because you have connections somewhere, be concerned about what happens across the country. And so be a peace ambassador that helps keep the country safe and secure. Because in that way, we all have a way to move about freely. That you can go out without anyone asking, where are you coming from? What are you doing here? But if we compare the security forces to come out in their large numbers, we will be impacted as citizens. So all we need to do is to stay peaceful.
Okay.
And so let's protect the peace, because that's what we have.
Thank you very much, Jimmy, for joining us this morning. He's the resident, the country manager of IRI, the International Republican Institute. Thanks for joining us this morning. Definitely, we'll have you in subsequent editions to talk further on your work and in supporting Sierra Leone. And it's sad, like you mentioned, we couldn't have the presidential debates. I know the role you played the last time in having that here in Sierra Leone. Thanks for your support and work.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We now join Ransford McLean, who's all set for our sport news. Good morning, Ransford. Bad news, we lost yesterday.
Yes, absolutely. That was disturbing or terrifying news for Sierra Leoneans, on the campaign for the road to Ivory Coast 2024 Africa Cup of Nations. But for the story, the hope of Sierra Leoneans have been dashed after Leone Stars yesterday 3-2 loss to the Super Eagles of Nigeria. Even Leone Stars win their last match will still make will still not be able to make it to Ivory Coast and the tournament. But however, some passionate football fans in the country have described the team performance as impressive after the match ended. Leone Stars will complete the campaign away to Guinea-Bissau in September this year. Let's take a look.
Again, I appreciate the team very well. Team play, so exceptional. The performance was so great, but the finishing is very, very poor. Very poor. Because Nigeria sometimes they not get edge over, we able them. So I don't know more what's happening this time around, where they can beat this P2.
At the nick of time, the boys can play, but the end of the game get the blunder.
Starting of the game play very well, you understand. But like the mistakes them, it come up from the coach. I call the key star. They go take player winner number 9, they go use as defend. Where you get defender than at the bench. You understand? So like the middle back, if you get someone he lapses at the middle.
That's why I said it's about this experience, times experience there, too far I have an agreement, my contract was to qualify for Nations Cup. I've already qualified. So again, this was part of what we wanted to do, but again, if it's not meant to.
John Kista there on the post-match press conference after yesterday's match. But as it stands, before I close, the Super Eagles and Guinea-Bissau, they've booked their ticket to the AFCON 2024 in Ivory Coast. Nigeria with 12 points and Guinea-Bissau with 10 points so far, and Sierra Leone on third place in Group A with 4 points, and Sao Tome and Principe with just a point. So it's really a dual moment for Sierra Leone. But finally, the board of directors of Sierra Leone Cricket, board of director Francis Trevor Samara, has said that they have already established the sport at schools, community institutions, and universities in Sierra Leone, noting that it's a way of popularizing cricket across the country. He said this and more during an interview with AYV. But more of that will be captured in our news. But that's all for sports. And back to you, Zulaihat Hamid and Amadou Lamanaba in our main studio.
Well, thank you very much, Ransford McLean, for the sports update. It's sad we couldn't make it to the next AFCON. Better luck next time. Hopefully, we'll, do better in subsequent qualifications. We are very hopeful and looking forward to going to the Nations Cup again, but it's unfortunate. But congratulations to the boys and the technical team, the Sierra Leone Football Association, and the government for their support as well. And it's painful, but we'll come again and prepare better for other tournaments.
Yes, well, this is where we end today's edition of Wake Up Sierra Leone. Remind you, our quote for today says, internal wrangles within political system needs to be resolved in a manner that Sierra Leoneans' lives and national development is not jeopardized. I still believe that reconciliation is the best way to go for a leader, and it comes from Prince Macaulay, an economist and private development consultant.
Many thanks to our sponsor, OK Commercial Bank, for their support to the program. Thanks to our guests who've joined us this morning. And thanks to your viewers and listeners who've been with us these 2 hours. Wake Up Sierra Leone returns tomorrow at 8 a.m. Till then, we have been your presenters. I am Amadou Lamganapa. Thanks for being with us.
And I am Zulaihat Hamid. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Ch-ch-ch-ch-ch.